ਵੈਲਕਮ ਬੈਕ ਜੀ। ਸੋ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਇਸ ਵੇਲੇ ਵੇਖ ਰਹੇ ਹੋ ਨਵੀਂ ਤਾਜ਼ੀ YouTube ਤੇ ਗੁਰਪ੍ਰੀਤ ਸਿੰਘ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ। ਜਿਵੇਂ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਦੱਸਿਆ ਗਿਆ, ਸਾਡੀ ਅੱਜ ਦੀ ਬਹੁਤ ਹੀ ਖਾਸ ਮਹਿਮਾਨ ਹੈ ਫਲਸਤੀਨ ਪੱਖੀ ਕਾਰਕੁਨ ਐਨੀ ਓਹਾਨਾ। ਖੁਦ ਵੀ ਇੱਕ ਯਹੂਦੀ ਔਰਤ ਹੈ ਪਰ ਇਨਸਾਫ ਪਸੰਦ ਹੈ, ਨਸਲ ਵਿਰੋਧੀ ਕਾਰਕੁਨ ਵੀ ਹੈ, ਟੀਚਰ ਵੀ ਹੈ। ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਨੇ ਵੱਡਾ ਐਲਾਨ ਕੀਤਾ ਕਿ ਫਲਸਤੀਨ ਨੂੰ ਮਾਨਤਾ ਦਿੱਤੀ ਜਾਵੇਗੀ। ਇਸ ਦੇ ਕੀ ਮਾਇਨੇ ਨੇ, ਇਸ ਦੇ ਬਾਰੇ ਵਿਸ਼ੇਸ਼ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਅੱਜ ਦੇ ਇਸ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮ ਦੀ ਪਲੇਠੀ ਮੁਲਾਕਾਤ ਵਿੱਚ ਐਨੀ ਓਹਾਨਾ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ। Hi Annie, thanks for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me.
So Annie, Canada has decided to recognize Palestine. What was your first reaction to this announcement?
Gosh, just how many decades people have been waiting to hear that? Just like that first gut reaction. I don't think a lot of people thought that would ever happen, to be honest with you. And it's sad that it has to come at a time of genocide. So that's also the reality of it, right? One would have hoped a peace agreement, right? Something, and yet when I say that, so there's that joy, there's that hope that finally. But I have to say that a lot of people do have concerns with the way that it's happening. And so there's a lot more to come. So the announcement itself doesn't really mean a lot. There are people that will not be for it on all sides, actually. But I have to say that I am hopeful. Maybe it's naive, but we do need a Palestinian state. And what politically that looks like, that's other conversations. But I just don't see how we continue in this world without, Palestinians being free.
So that brings me to the next question.
Yeah.
Now there is a lot of skepticism within the Palestinian community.
Yes.
Can you make us understand why is that the case?
I think the reality is there's a lot of strings to it, and it's coming at a time when the Israeli government has no intention of recognizing. They are fully going ahead with like E1 expansion and apartheid and all kinds of things in the West Bank and obviously in Gaza. So this is not something that we can impose. Interestingly enough. And then you have settler colonial states making this decision, but are they going to enforce it, right? What does that look like? And are Palestinians even involved in this discussion? So at the end of the day, we're not seeing that, right? So there's a lot of concerns that it needs to be done differently. And people need to understand that and not just to wipe that away. It's like when we talk about reconciliation. From a settler perspective, reconciliation is very different than what indigenous peoples think reconciliation is. And so just because you say the word Palestine, it doesn't mean you believe it. It doesn't mean that you are going to enforce it. And if we look at Palestine now, based on, what is it, maybe 2% left of land, like that's intact, that's not what Palestine is, right? Even within 1967 borders, that's not what Palestine is.
So in your understanding, what Canada needs to do actually?
I think we need to be a lot stronger about taking on the Netanyahu regime for the genocide, for the war crimes, for the ongoing apartheid that it's committing. We need to be strong against settlement activity, the ever expansion. We are seeing how they are transgressing sovereignty of multiple states. So we don't see a lot of language around that. We don't see a lot of sanctions. At the end of the day, you see how many other countries have sanctions on them, from Cuba to Russia, etc. Some of it completely ridiculous. Others, well worth it. So why not in the case of when you have a state that is transgressing against so many people? So, okay. At the end of the day, for me personally, I would say I like the idea that the UN voted a majority to say Palestine exists. I do think that's a step forward. But unless we actually take political action that holds Netanyahu and all these other folks accountable, I take it back to World War II. It's an interesting connection, right? But to me, you had to hold the Nazis accountable. You had to hold the people that built that whole genocidal structure accountable. And if we don't do that in Israel, within Israel, we have hundreds of thousands of people marching. We have hostage families asking for this. So take that accountability step, and then maybe we can celebrate this announcement as it should be.
No, that makes sense. Yeah. Now, Israel continues to call it as an act of rewarding terrorism.
Yeah.
Your thoughts?
Yeah. No, it's not, because I think this is exactly the time to show how Hamas does not control things. That in October 7th, what was done by anybody was absolutely evil, vile, horrific, and is a war crime. So if they want to say that this is how they fight, well, that's a war crime, just as what Israel has done when they go into towns and do the exact same thing. So to me, I've never appreciated Hamas because I think it took out a lot of the middle ground. It took out a lot of Palestinians that wanted to find a solution and were called terrorists for doing so, or sympathizers, right? So to me, this is the time that we take that energy away from Hamas and actually focus on the decades of the generations of Palestinians that have fought for a Palestinian state in many ways. I've met with people that want a peaceful solution. Again, politically, very different what that answer is. But I know so many Palestinians that want to see this so that everybody has the right to exist within whatever boundaries that are formed. This has nothing to do with Hamas, and we need to say that so that Hamas hears that themselves. And we have to dictate that a little bit, that the only way forward is to find a way that is peaceful and that is based on human rights. The continued killing of innocent people will never bring forward a state.
Right. Now, October 2nd happens to be the birth anniversary of Mahatma Gandhi, who stood up for the people of Palestine.
Yeah.
However, the current Indian leadership has broken away from that tradition. What is your take on that?
How far we fall, how far we regress, right? So same thing in Canada and America and so many countries that seem to have taken steps backward, even though you had leadership in those countries that fought for their own sovereignty, fought for their own independence from colonial states, and yet here we are just supporting colonial systems. We are supporting horrific, war crimes and regimes. So to me, what it shows is that Modi continues to be a massive problem. He's doing just as Trump does, right? They do it for expediency of their own agenda. If tomorrow supporting Palestine would mean something to him, he would do it. But that's not what we really want. And I think it holds true to the India that everybody dreams of and wants, in terms of that sovereign state, is being distorted in so many ways by the Modi regime, whether that's religiously, economically, right, from the farmers onwards. There's so many ways that they are taking India as a state backwards. And to me, I don't know, it's just another example. He is in cahoots with Netanyahu. And let alone, asking for accountability, he's part of the problem. And the government is part of the problem in that regard.
Now, people like you and others who have been supporting a Free Palestine cause for a very long time are often accused of being anti-Semitic. How problematic is that?
So if people don't know, my family's Moroccan, but they moved to Israel. There's a lot of diasporic movement, as is the case for a lot of Jews. So my mom and dad and my entire family, they were there on October 7th. And in fact, my parents witnessed, they were there. They had to be evacuated out. We had a family member who was taken hostage and luckily was returned and is alive and well. So I have family who's in the IDF. That's the bottom line, right? So to me, always I say it's about the government. It's not about the people themselves. It's not about Judaism, right? My Judaism is not occupation. And I know many Jews feel that way. We need to live up to our legacy of our ancestors from the Warsaw Ghetto, from areas, from resistance movements that fought for their rights, but didn't in turn turn around to take it away from others. You see how so many Jews, they have no problem with Germany these days, right? So that's what I dream of, right? And being a Sephardic Jew, living in an Arabic country of Morocco, the reality is we have a history of peaceful coexistence. And I hate the fact that we're erasing that. The current regime that is suggesting that there can never be, Arabs, or at least not free, right? They have to be under the Israeli government, a truly free, whatever you want to call it, Arab, Palestinian, Christian, whatever. That's problematic. That actually goes against the history of Jews, in my mind. There is ancient history there, 100%, right? But again, it doesn't mean that you then burn it all down and eliminate or annihilate a different peoples who happen to coexist on those lands. We all come from somewhere. We've all moved around. The idea of just this such a pure idea of what that means is really problematic. It's not anti-Semitic. I want people to criticize Canada. I want people to criticize America. I want people to criticize their governments whenever they do wrong. It doesn't make us haters. It doesn't make us terrorists. It doesn't make us this idea of being anti-whatever. I don't like that idea of anti. How can you be anti-Israeli or anti-Palestinian? I don't understand that. that, right? These are human beings, and we continue to fight that label. And in fact, it's dangerous because we see rising anti-Semitism. You have a Christian nationalist country just a couple minutes away from us that is absolutely taking away the rights of Jews, of Muslims, of Sikhs, of Hindus, of all. And yet, where are those voices? They're so wrapped up trying to say that Palestinians are the ones causing, or people are the ones causing anti-Semitism when it's not. But we're going to see Jews die as part of this. Let's fight that anti-Semitism. That's what anti-Semitism is. The conversation about what an Israeli state needs to look like, or better yet, what a Palestinian state needs to look like, when done properly, is actually like a vision of a tomorrow where Jews feel safe no matter where they are, and in ways that are appropriately human, can coexist in the Middle East. Can absolutely, again, I'm not here to decide politically what the answer is, right? If it means a two-state solution, it's a two-state solution. But this idea that any discussion, I've seen it, I've heard it, I've witnessed it, any discussion of Palestine is anti-Semitic is absolutely wrong, and it's exactly the arguments white supremacists want us to make. So we divide anybody, right? Whether it's Indians, whether it's Jews, whether it's whatever, Israelis, and then they come in and they destroy us even more. So, but I know that I stand with my Palestinian brothers and sisters in that our salvation, our liberation is tied together. And I will never say that it's one or the other.
Definitely. Well, and it was nice talking to you. Thank you so much for your time. Is
Yeah.
there anything I didn't ask you before I let you go?
No, just thank you for bringing up these topics always, and fabulous questions, and I can't wait to see what else you do as you continue, and we need to continue bringing this up. So just because we have now recognized Palestine, those are just words. So it's time to put action behind those words.
Thank you so much, kind words.
No worries.
Take care. Bye for now.